All right. 3, 2, 1. What's up, everyone? It's Dakota, and welcome back to another Pioneer video. And today we're going to be continuing down the rabbit hole of Discover combo decks, which is a new mechanic in the Lost Caverns of Ixalan set that is proving that it is kind of taking over Pioneer and definitely sinking its teeth into the format and really developing into one of the premier combo decks in the format. Of course, before we get too deep into this version of Discover combo, if you are not already subscribed to the channel and you want to see more videos like this, I do a lot of modern content, I do Pioneer, and I do other longer form video stuff. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell if any of those interest you, and then you'll be notified when those videos get uploaded. And if you want to go join the Discord server as well, I have a link in the description down below as well that you can click, follow, join, all that fun stuff. So this version of Discover is being labeled Geological Appraiser Combo, and the namesake card is Geological Appraiser. Pretty crazy. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, discover 3. So already, like one of two ways, like they tried to balance this card with having the discover by having to cast it. Now there is that's honestly kind of really ironic considering like kind of like the line that we'll go through. So in particular, like you're gonna play this card for 4 mana. You're gonna cast it. You're gonna discover 3. There is only 2 different cards you can hit in this deck. In like the Quintorius combo deck, there's 2, but you continue to clone the same creature or the same planeswalker, and then you just keep going through and casting your things until your opponent dies due to the static ability of Quintorius Con. Geological Appraiser can either hit a Glass Pool Mimic or hit an Eldritch Evolution. So what's going to happen is we cast Geological Appraiser, enters the battlefield, we cast it so we get to discover 3. We hit a Glass Pool Mimic. Discover specifically says that you exile cards from the top of your library until you get a non-land card with mana value 3 or less, and you cast it without paying its mana cost, or put it to your hand, you put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So if we hit a Glass Pool Mimic, we cast the Glass Pool Mimic, comes into play, it copies Geological Appraiser. And then its ability triggers because we technically cast a clone even though we didn't pay any mana for it. So then we get to discover 3 again, and essentially we want to go until we hit Eldritch Evolution. Eldritch Evolution says that we have to sacrifice a creature's additional cost. Even though we get out of paying the mana cost of Eldritch Evolution, we still have to pay the additional cost to the spell. So we have to sacrifice something. So we sacrifice Geological Appraiser. So we can go get something that costs 6 or less from our deck, put it into play. So we have a few cards. There's Doomscar Titan, which gives your creatures +1/+0 and haste until end of turn. So essentially, if you just make a board full of Geological Appraisers, you sacrifice one of them, you're going to have 5 of them in play, and then you're going to be able to get a Doomscar Titan. They're all going to be 4-power creatures with haste. That's 20 damage. Same thing with the Doomscar Titan as well. It's going to be a 5-power creature, so you hit your opponent for 25 damage, clean and easy. You have Torrential Gearhulk as a potential option, which when it enters the battlefield, you can cast target instant card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost, and if it would be put in the graveyard this way, exile it instead. Which happens to play very well with cards like Creative Outburst and Magma Opus. I believe you can deck Bedazzle too, so I mean you could destroy a basic non-basic land stuff. But Creative Outburst and Magma Opus are the especially creative ones in a way. Definitely a fun choice of words there. So you can both pay a hybrid blue and a red and discard the card to create a treasure token. This kind of plays a role in getting to cast Geological Appraiser earlier. So you're making like a treasure token on like turn 2, you're activating this, discarding it, make a treasure token, play your land, cast Geological Appraiser. It's also putting a card in the graveyard. So when we go through this combo that we're talking about, that you can go get a Torrential Gearhulk and then you can just flash back a Creative Outburst or a Magma Opus. So Creative Outburst, probably the least known of the two. Deals 5 damage to any target. You look at the top 5 cards, you put one of them in your hand, rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And this is like a way that we can, go through our thing. We can find another Geological Appraiser, set it all up, and go again, or at least have a very good chance at it. We talked about like getting to flashback Bedazzle. The Bedeck, probably not too much of a, something that you want to be doing with your big giant Torrential Gearhulk, but Bedazzle, you can destroy non-basic land, deal damage to target opponent or planeswalker. So you can deal with the planeswalkers a little bit, get rid of like a a Nykthos or whatever if you can't necessarily win that turn. If you manage to get it in there, and deck would actually be pretty decent against some of the threats and stuff from like the mono green deck, or at least in dealing with them. Magma Opus is the kind of big flashy, like this is the spell. If you're going to flash something back, you want to flash back. So it's 8 mana. Of course, it's an instant, so that's very important for our Torrential Gearhulk. It deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures, or any number of targets, so you can target your opponent with the damage. You tap 2 target permanents, and then you create a 4/4 red, blue and red elemental creature token, and then you draw 2 cards. This is a wall of text that is all very good at just about every point in the game. That, just getting the flashes back, doesn't necessarily mean you win the game, unfortunately, but the fact that you kind of get to set yourself up, do it again, draw some cards, put another big threat into play, essentially with the token along with the Gearhulk, you have 9 power in play. You can probably close out a game pretty quickly, in 2 turns from there. Getting to kind of tempo your opponent as well. The tapping isn't going to be as great as if you just cast this in speed, but with the various ways that you can make different treasure tokens and whatnot, definitely having Magma Opus as a backup plan is not the worst backup plan either. You also have Connive and Concoct, which cannot be flashed back by Torrential Gearhulk, but you can cast the Concoct side of it. And if you don't even have a Glass Pull Mimic or something, or even any one of these other creatures like in the graveyard, you can hopefully surveil into it, and you can take that calculated risk however you see fit, and end up putting one into the graveyard and then returning it to the battlefield, which is going to be important for the last card that we're looking at, and we'll kind of like bring our combo full circle in Trumpeting Carnosaur. It has the ability, we've seen it in the previous Discover deck, where you can pay 3 mana and you can discard it to deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. It gives you some early game interaction, and the mana cost helps out with our, discovery and not being able to discover the dinosaur and just be able to use it for removal if we need to. However, this one doesn't have the restriction that Geological Appraiser has, where this just enters the battlefield, you discover 5, and it's a 7/6 trample, and we get to do this discover again, and we're gonna miss Doomscar Titan and Torrential Gearhulk, almost by design. And the only other card that we're going to be able to hit with this Trumpeting Carnosaur is either Geological Appraiser or Glass Pull Mimic or an Eldritch Evolution. If we manage to get Eldritch Evolution, we can evolution a Carnosaur away to go get a Galta Stampede Tyrant. 12/12 trample, you put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. This is kind of a way where if you draw a Doomscar Titan, or maybe if you have like another Glass Pull Mimic, whatever, you can copy, a Carnosaur if you have one still in play. You can just kind of like dump some of these other dorks into play, and especially if you have the Doomscar Titan, because then you could just put it in, and then between like Galta and this, that's 18 damage. More than likely, you can win the game from there as well. So as you kind of figured out, this deck is kind of not, I'm gonna say like all in on kind of just getting a Geological Appraiser, casting it, finding it, doing whatever you need to do, and going and winning the game. The combo is very consistent with setup, considering that you just have to resolve one Geological Appraiser, and then more than likely your opponent is kind of like lost for the game. Uh, the Eldritch Evolution being able to just kind of get rid of like one of your combo pieces to go into an even bigger combo piece that then leads down these little rabbit holes of just, either putting a big beater into play in Galta, or even just kind of building out a board of these Carnosaurs and attacking and giving them trample and haste and everything like that, and having 3, 4, 5 of these in play, and at 8 power, you have 24 trampling power, 32 trampling power, what have you, and more than likely it's going to be enough to close out the game. The mana base real quick, you have 2 Cavern Souls, give your Geological Appraiser uncounterable, so it gives your opponent even less ways of interacting with your combo of sorts and getting this onto the battlefield to trigger that Discover ability. You have 4 Blightstep Pathways, 5 Mountains. Obviously, you want to make sure that you have double red for your Appraiser. You have an Otawara, it just has some interaction. You have a Riverglide Pathway, which is the blue-red pathway that is very shy right now. You have a Temple Epiphany, Temple of Malice. We haven't seen these in a while being played in Constructed, but these are just like additional ways that you can kind of look for, Geological Appraiser, or get to like a Trumpeting Carnosaur if you get to the point where you just have enough lands where you can play this, or just enough mana to play it. so you essentially have 8 pieces of like your combo to kind of get going. Sideboard, you have Chandra, Awakened Inferno. Haven't seen this card really since it was standard legal way back when for like elementals and stuff, but definitely the -3 ability, just getting to kind of sweep everything away. This can't be countered, and eventually does win the game. If you just keep plussing it, keep giving your opponent emblems, the damage is going to stack. And then eventually they're going to succumb to the damage from these. It also is like targeted removal as well with like the -X, where you can also hit planeswalkers and creatures and then exile them instead as well. So definitely can be pretty useful against some of like the mono green stuff and just being like good removal, good targeted removal for bigger things while having another ability that could sweep away a ton of small creatures. You have Shark Typhoon, which you could eventually like cast and then cast some of these other like bedazzle or concoct or whatever, start making big sharks and attacking your opponent down. Thought Distortion is just like the premier way of just making sure that your spell is going to go through, cast this, get rid of all their stuff, and then on the next turn just completely go off, or eventually just wait until you can cast this and then cast Geological Appraiser, and it still works the same. You have Cosign to Oblivion, which we saw in the Quintorius version that we're now seeing in the sideboard of this deck. Return target permanent to its owner's hand, and when it's in your graveyard, you can cast it for its aftermath, which target opponent discards 2 cards. Yes, these are different from the other split cards from the Ravnica set. These you can only cast one side of them, unlike the original like Return to Ravnica, where we had the ability to cast both. You only have the ability to cast one. And this one you can only cast Oblivion if it's in your graveyard. You don't have the option to just cast it if it's in your hand. Finally, we have Mirror Shell Crab, which you can, put into play. I mean, a 5/7 War 3 is going to be very hard to deal with on the super early turns of the game, as well as, just getting to continue to copy it and whatnot and kind of go and win the game that way. But it has this channel ability, kind of like what we see on, in a way, on Trumpeting Carnosaur, even though it's not labeled as channel, and then like on Otawara that's actually channel. But you can pay the cost and discard it and counter target spell or ability unless its controller pays 3. This is like a way that you can combat like the Stone Brain, where you can just cast discard the Mirror Shell Crab, counter the ability of them activating it to take away your win condition, and hopefully give you like enough of like a time and a turn really to kind of do your combo and go off. So that is the Geological Appraiser combo for the Pioneer format. Overall, like my thoughts on it, there's definitely a chain that you want to follow where with the Quintorius conversion, you are, I think you're pretty much deterministic to win. I think this deck might even be more than that. I like the Planeswalker version. I thought it was interesting, but this version definitely is something that I think I want to try out before kind of casting judgment on which one's the better deck. I think that we all can agree the fact that there's like 2, potentially 3 different Discover combos, whether it's with the Planeswalker Quintorius Con or whether it's Geological Appraiser or Trumpeting Carnosaur or whatever it is, that it's going to be here to stay. And with the track record we've seen from the Wizards of the Coast and the banning and stuff in Pioneer, this is probably going to be playing out for at least another month or 2. So I'd imagine that this is a deck that you definitely want to prepare for, understand some of the basic lines and stuff like that. And obviously, as you get better and maybe play against it more, just kind of go a little bit deeper into their thought process to kind of help you when you're playing your deck and you end up getting matched up against this crazy combo deck that now exists in the Pioneer format. So that's going to do it for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like on the video. Comment down below if there's a different Pioneer deck that you want to see. If you have some experience playing the Appraiser deck, I would definitely love to hear it. Be sure to leave those comments down below. I'd love to read them. And of course, join the Discord server as well. Subscribe, all that fun stuff. So that's going to do it for me. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.